Digital platforms have the potential to revolutionize markets, and the benefits in efficiency and consumer welfare can be considerable. They decrease the minimum efficient size of a firm to a bedroom on a weekend, a car on an afternoon, a millennial with a smartphone, substantially increasing choice, variety, and competition. And they aren't dumb markets. They use brands and feedback mechanisms to increase consumer trust, data and algorithms to match consumers to the services that suit them best. They can be thought of as stewarding their ecosystems to maximize attractiveness to the consumer, much like a regulator would steward a traditional market to meet broader social objectives. But the new market equilibrium created by platforms is likely to look very different from the old. There will be winners and losers for sure. There will be uncertainty about what the long-term equilibrium will be. The platforms will often be international, foreign, alien. Social and business norms will likely to be disrupted. Old laws and regulations may longer apply or be appropriate or be enforceable. So combined, I think there will be pressures on regulators and governments to fill this apparent vacuum of responsibility, to reaffirm their sovereignty, to bend platforms and the markets they have created to their will. And this can lead on the surface to some pretty contradictory outcomes. A couple of examples. Google Shopping is alleged to have stewarded their market too much with some very substantial fines. This risks disincentivizing future use of search to align the interests of providers and consumers. Uber, on the other hand, is accused of stewarding their market too little, not looking after their drivers, with a threat that drivers must be treated as full employees. And this potentially breaks the supply-on-demand core of the Uber business model in the process. So it's a complicated debate, and I believe competition authorities have a very important role in this debate. They won't have all the answers, no one does, but their voice and expertise are essential. So their voice in representing the silent benefactors of competition, the firms who do not yet exist, and the consumers who those firms do not yet serve. Who else will speak up for them against the marshalled interests of the incumbents? And their expertise in cutting through the often substantial lobbying and rhetoric. First, in asking whether the policy concerns are competition concerns or not. For example, is there a competition problem upstream? Is there some market failure that is exacerbated by the increased competition that the platform brings? Perhaps negative externalities that the platform does not have an incentive to correct? Perhaps a concern that what consumers choose is not what they really should want? Is there a problem at the platform level? A question to ask is, would the policy concern be alleviated if there were 3 competing Facebooks, 3 competing Googles? Sometimes the answer will be yes, but sometimes no. And in fact, maybe it is not a competition problem at all that policy is concerned about. Not all concerns have to relate to competition, though, given the size of some platforms, it can be tempting to assume that they do. A second way for competition authorities to use their technical expertise in suggesting what could proportionately be done to resolve policy concerns. First, identifying when the interests of the platform are aligned with society and a policy of co-stewardship can be adopted, perhaps similar to co-regulation of self-regulatory bodies. And when platform and social interests are not aligned, the role is identifying and costing the most efficient way to meet the policy objective. It can be tempting to make the platform responsible. They are already a market steward, and sometimes this will be appropriate, but sometimes it won't. It can entrench a platform's position by raising significant barriers to entry for competitors, or lead to excessive risk adversity in application. So to conclude, digital platforms can revolutionize markets, and it is often understandable and appropriate that governments and regulators try and ensure that the new market outcome is at least as socially acceptable as the one it replaced. But competition agencies have an important role to play in that debate, and the question at the core of the competition assessment toolkit remains as relevant as it ever has. How can the policy objective be reached with the minimal impact on the beneficial forces of competition?